good evening, everyone. Welcome to Green White Checker TV. Tonight we are at Nashville Superspeedway on board with my partner in crime, Maxwell Caldwell. He's going to take us through some laps here tonight at Nashville Superspeedway. I'll say it's going to be a new one for everybody. We all ran a few laps here and there, but this is going to be a very difficult track, I think, for some of these drivers to kind of get underneath them here tonight.
Absolutely. So welcome everybody to Green White Checker TV. Glad to have y'all here tonight. And we're going to take y'all through a few laps around. Gael, I actually forgot to black flag myself, so I'm going to probably nick the wall here when I start lap 2. And then I'll start making the laps here for everybody. But where you're going to want to be tonight, guys, is you are going to want to see these guys right down on the bottom. There's not really much of a high side here at the Nashville Superspeedway, okay? So for this first corner, I'm just going to kind of nick. There we go. So now you may see some guys run this second groove I'm in right here and may get a little bit of time, a little bit of momentum here, but it's not going to be a whole heck of a lot. So you're going to see guys struggling to get to the bottom, but I think definitely in 3 and 4, you're going to want to be glued right down here next to the pavement, right where the concrete meets the pavement there. You're going to have to really watch that exit of 4 as you see me just barely nick the wall. That's going to be a tight squeeze coming off that corner. The car setup tonight, pretty much on the tight side. This track is very inviting as far as how fast you think you can go, but you're really not going to be able to run the speeds you think you can. So it's not going to feel too tight on the exit of 2, but on the exit of 4, you really feel like you can carry a lot of momentum, when in all reality, the car is really going to start pushing rather late in the corner. It's like you got to wait that extra little minute, and you see my car pushing right up next to the wall. That's what them drivers are going to be fighting all night long, Gael. And one other thing we're going to see at this track, it has a very tight pit road. So it's going to be interesting to see if we have green flag stops, how these drivers approach pit road. Some may go for the late entry, but after I ran a few laps around here earlier in practice, I'm really thinking you're going to have to back it way up with as much as this car wants to push the front end. You see me already backing way up, and I'm still almost overshooting. See me sliding there? And then you got to get it all the way down to 45 there at the line. So it's going to be a tough pit road tonight for these drivers. And as they're slowing down in turn 3, they're going to have to watch their mirrors so they do not get run over. But those are your laps around the Nashville Superspeedway. And Gael, go ahead and give us some numbers on what these drivers can expect tonight as far as their fuel numbers and everything like that.
Yeah, so tonight's race, let's say pull up our race info for this evening's event. It's going to be 120 laps tonight. And so say you're going to see, I think for sure we'll see 2 stops for sure will be the scheduled distance tonight. And then you're right, though, say for the fuel window, I believe it's going to be in about the 45 or so laps, but I think definitely drivers could stretch it to that 50 mark. Saying originally the schedule was for it to be a 100-lap race, opted to kind of stretch out just a little bit to kind of make sure we don't run into an issue where drivers aren't able to kind of run at their full potential and not just run and try and get some lap times to get into that 50-lap mark. So that's why we see that for this evening for that race distance. Also, I think we should be able to pull up here, I believe, trying to see if I can get that here, if I can pull up our point standings. If it shows, it's not showing, unfortunately. Say I'm still trying to play around with that a little bit. Haven't got it squared away yet, unfortunately, it appears. Trying to make use of some of the stuff we get to use week in and week out. But do need to mention this is race number 5, however. And so right now, Larry Yingling with a 16-point lead over Ryan Kelly. Chris Matthews there in third. He is, like you mentioned earlier, a pretty big margin, 47 points out of the lead. But the thing is, again, the big thing's going to be try to be in that top 8. And right now, the number 2 machine, Todd Merkel, he is sitting in that 8th spot. So that's going to be a critical thing for these drivers to keep an eye out throughout the race. I say it's a bit of a smaller field. Say a new track, some drivers may have not purchased it. So right now though, that's going to be, I think that's going to shake things up a little bit here as well.
Absolutely.
Right. I said actually though, everybody's starting to grid here, so we got to jump on that quick here before they start rolling. Apologies, Maxwell. So we got on the pole position is going to be the number 94 of Dale Not Getting. I believe this might be his first Area 51 pole in that 94 machine. Next to him, 7 thousandths of a second, is Larry Yingling. And look at second, third, and fourth here, Maxwell. It was 7 thousandths of a second for Larry Yingling, then 8 thousandths for Chad Wilkes, and then 8 thousandths for Ryan Kelly. So second through fourth, they're just a thousandth of a second between the 3 of them. Fifth, you got Kevin Freeze, and you got Jack Walls. James Ledford, Alberto Lopez, Michael Spell, Gabe Butler, Todd Merkel there in 11th. And then a few drivers opting not to run a qualifying lap this evening. You got Dale Willoughby, Chris Matthews, Eric Laurie, John Brill, and Joseph DeCiro. Some of these drivers opting not to take the qualifying laps there tonight. So I think that'll put them in a good spot to maybe be the highest climber this evening. But we've mentioned this is going to be a tough track to pass at. So it's going to be very interesting to see kind of how this race is going to unfold tonight.
Absolutely, and apologies for the viewers. I thought that I nicked the wall where it wouldn't count a qualifying lap, but I guess it did. So apologies to Dale Wilbur, and I can't even say names tonight, and to Dale and everybody else in the field for putting a lap down by accident. But
oh, no worries there. But you know what we should do, though? We got to put this man on the spot here, Maxwell. We're going to drag in that number 94 of Dale Knott, because I believe this is your first Area 51 pole, if I'm not mistaken, Dale. So, I mean, take us through the lap. I know this is one you've been looking forward to this track. So, while we get going here and get under grid, I mean, how does it feel to top some of those big names, those heavy hitters tonight?
I'll tell you what, it comes as a real big surprise. But I had a dream last night where Larry was going to start on my outside, and I was going to sail it off into one. And, just hope for the best. So good luck to him making it out of 2. I'm just kidding. That's not true at all.
Well, that being said, though, pace car, you see already lights are off, so I think you guys are going to be going quickly here. So we'll let you focus back up and get after you here, and hopefully we'll be having a chat with you here after the race, sir.
All right. Y'all have a good day.
All right. That's our pole sitter in that number 94, Dale Knott. As I said, I believe, again, his first pole position, again, it's just 7 thousandths of a second between himself and Larry, and saying just 8 thousandths between himself and Chad Wilkes, Ryan Kelly. So these guys are going to be right on top of each other lap time-wise. So we'll keep an eye on that pace car. It does peel off, so it's going to hand it over to that 94. And once that green flag flies, we will be underway here tonight at Nashville Superspeedway.
absolutely. Here come the drivers to the line. The green flag is out. We are underway at Nashville Superspeedway. The 94 getting a good launch, but the 67 staying right with him. But I think that bottom's where you're going to want to be early on. Should have no trouble for the 94 to clear, but the 67 sails it off into 1 and going to be side by side here coming down to 2 as they battle for position on down into turn 3. Larry Yingling with the early momentum.
Yeah, that's kind of what I had a feeling. We've seen year after year, race after race, even if Larry doesn't get pole position, if he's on that front row, he is one to watch on these initial starts because he just is able to sail that car into turn number 1. And so he's going to grab that first lap lead there in that 67 car. And so that crucial bonus point right off the bat going to go to his go into his little piggy bank, if you will. Because every bonus point you can collect obviously definitely adds up a long ways.
Absolutely, and I think that 94 just early on, knowing this event is an extra 20 laps in length, knows he's got plenty of time, knew the 67 was going to be aggressive. We know the 17's aggressive, the 13's aggressive. We know these guys, they run top 5 each and every week. I think he knew what they were doing, and he just wanted to get settled in and get in a rhythm. If we know Dale well, is he loves to settle in and get a rhythm. And we've seen the last 2 weeks that even though he would give up a couple spots early, on the long run, he'd reel them in. So if he can keep himself up the top 5, he may just be able to reel in that 67 and that 17 and get right back to him and get those positions back and lead it for you later on in the event.
Yeah, exactly, Ryan. And 2 of the drivers I feel like that are really the best on the long runs right now are right together with Dale Knott, Ryan Kelly. We know how good Ryan is, especially on the long runs. And I say a lot of guys were kind of watching what his lap times were, especially over that longer run. So right now things have all kind of singled out just that little bit here with these top 3, top 4 drivers. Kevin Freeze right there in that 5th spot. And so, like you said, I mean, a very single file type track. So everybody's got a pretty good gap with each other. And again, I think it's just that newness of the track as well that these drivers all just kind of all having to learn here. I think, especially this opening, maybe 40 or so laps. Like I said, maybe try to hit that fuel window. I think that's where we're going to really see when things start opening up a little bit. So we'll see right now. Everybody holding pretty steady, a couple tenths between each car. Right now, so one of the closer battles here is right here for the 8th position. You've got the 7th place, Alberto Lopez, 8th, James Lefford, and the 9th, Gabe Butler. They're all right here just within basically a tenth or so of each other. Now kind of just creeping in on Jack Walls as well. So Say right now these guys are definitely keeping a close eye on one another here.
Absolutely, and it seems like everybody's trying to string out and just get some laps in tonight. In my experience, you talk about the newness of the track here to iRacing. One of the newer additions, not a new track per se, but for iRacing to add, with the Cup Series coming here this year, this was a new addition to the service. And let me tell you, I've been waiting many years for this track to come. Being born and raised in West Kentucky, I'm only about 2 hours from Nashville, so I always saw this track and thought, man, that'd be neat to go see a race there one day, or better yet, when I got on iRacing, I always thought, I wish they had Nashville on here. Dreams really do come true, Gael. They added it, and it proves to be one of the more difficult tracks to go and run at. The thing's only 1.33 miles in length, but man, it is a difficult little concrete oval here. It's probably one of the biggest concrete ovals we run on, and that concrete surface, very similar to Dover, is going to make these cars handle a lot different. How the surface rubber's in, how it takes changes with sun and cloud, temperature changes. It's going to be a whole lot different than we're used to on the asphalt track. So it's something these drivers are going to have to battle, and we know how Dover is on tire wear, so I'm real curious to see as this run progresses what tire wear is going to look like for these guys on a concrete oval that's a whole lot bigger, carrying a whole lot more speed. Most of these drivers only dropping down to about 130 as their slowest speed on the circuit. So definitely going to be watching the tire wear here and tire heat. And right now on track, we're seeing something I'd say is predictable. Those top 5 guys we talk about each and every week, they've kind of broke off into their own group. And the next group, that we have 6th through 9th, they are kind of in a group of their own. And then you got 2 more cars back there and everybody else kind of single file from then on out. But, top 5 really showing who the class of the field is so far tonight.
Yeah, he said it's kind of like last week in Pocono. I'd say they kind of just spread out a little bit, like I said, in kind of different little packs basically. And it's pretty much the same groups that we're seeing up front here. Like I said, you've got the Larry Inglings, Chad Wilkes, Ryan Kelly, Dale Knotts, Kevin Freeze. Say these are the guys we kind of saw in that same boat last week at Pocono. But yeah, so it's going to be, actually, I think we had a little bit of a moment. See a couple cars off track here. Let's go back and try to take a look, see what happened. Looks like Alberto Lopez, Gabe Butler, watching those two right here. And looks like the 20 came down, maybe got a little loose on exit, contact between himself and the number 1 machine. And so you can see them, unfortunately, both kind of head down towards the infield here. And Alberto definitely takes a pretty good shot to that to the inside wall. Stays green, so stayed off track. However, say both those cars losing a lot of time in track position, unfortunately. Say with Gabe still in lead lap for that one car, however 13 seconds off the front. Alberto Lopez also in a bad spot now, about 17 seconds out of the front. So unfortunately it's one of those things that we see from time to time, but like I said, they were kind of off on their own there. So we stay under green here as we start lap number 12 here of 120. Yeah, saying looking at the lap times, Chad Wilkes starting to slowly creep into that picture of the 67 Larry Yingling, and then also Ryan Kelly watching his lap times. He's starting to kind of do what he does best and start just getting a little closer lap by lap.
Absolutely, and in practice, seeing some guys really struggling, some of the guys that are in the back right now, saw some of them guys, I'd run behind them, and they were getting really loose on corner exit. Something I radioed in to some of the guys I was practicing with, that, the car is really bound up with the front. But as you come off the corner, I was even fighting a little bit of tire spin, especially off 4. So it's not a shock to see an incident like we just had with the 20 and the 1 there. Wrecking it out of 2, getting loose right there on that corner exit. The car really unloads. It gets very light as it comes off, and that back end just really almost feels like it's lifting up out of the track. But as far as the battle up front, we're seeing a very similar story that we've seen over multiple seasons in Area 51. As 17 and 13, they both have long run pace, and we see the 17 is right to the back bumper of Yingling, not even a car length between the two. Look for him to try to make a pass going into turn 3, and it looks like the 67 is just going to give it to him, knowing he's got the speed, knowing he's got the momentum, and knowing that we still have tons of laps to go. We still have over 100 laps to go, and we're not used to that in this league. So definitely Larry Yingling just being smart, being patient, gives the position early, going to see what the 17's doing and go from there. But you better not sit around too long. If that 13 gets around him, I don't know if the 67 will make it back around.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely Larry looking long-term in that 67 car. or say Larry gonna be messing with us again, and be like, yeah, I'm gonna be going to lap 61 on fuel here to make it on one stop, just to prove a point to everybody, trying to change the numbers up to make life difficult for him on the fuel saving side of things. But yeah, I mean, Chad Wilkes definitely one that we know has always got really good long run pace, and I mean, he's been showing it. But you can see he hasn't been able to drop Larry by any means. And like you said, Ryan Kelly right now one of the quicker cars on track. I say last time by, him and Dale were both the quickest cars by about a couple hundredths between each other, but about a tenth or so over Chad, Larry, and Kevin Freese. So kind of like we talked about from the get-go, those guys, they seem to find that long-term pace, long run pace in those two cars here. And as I say, Kevin Freese, I think he's just kind of watching and learning as these laps click off. But we're going to jump a little further back to Jack Walls here, because he's got plenty of action going on right behind him as well. You got James Ledford right there behind him. Then you got Todd Merkel, Chris Matthews, all right in this little mix here. So, like I say, kind of two groups here at the moment. Up in the top AZ, their 48 there got a little loose there off of 2, gathers it up nicely. But that's going to be something you're going to see a lot of. And I think that was exactly what we saw earlier, unfortunately, with that 20 car.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're seeing a tale of two stories here. We're seeing this top 5 really take off and stay within about a second and a quarter of each other, you know. And then you look back here to 6th place and 6th to 9th all over each other, but they're already 5.5 seconds off that front pack. So you see a pack of cars that are good handling, and you see a pack of cars that these drivers just trying to get acquainted with this track. This is probably one of the most difficult 1.5 miles they've been on this season. So they're really trying to get a feel and just trying to ride it out. But as they're riding it out, they've probably also been racing with each other a little bit. And I think this group of 4 right now with Jack Walls, James Ledford, Todd Merkel, and Chris Matthews, I really believe they are just in survival mode. Let's make it to the first pit stop. We might have angered our tires, you know, sliding them around a little bit, getting heat built in them, and kind of getting them out of sorts, you know. And let's get down pit road and let's get a fresh set and let's try to regroup for the next run. They've got extra laps in this race that they normally wouldn't have, as we're just now coming to lap 20. So, you know, plenty of time to be able to race. 100 more to go here. So they've got plenty of time. It's just they're learning back here. They are feeling each other out and they are learning and trying not to let that front end slide on them, as we see the 48 have happened to him over the course of these last couple laps.
Yeah, exactly right. And like I said, I mean, this is a new track for everybody. Probably some drivers tonight was probably the first time they put any laps down on the track. Some drivers might even be they just literally just downloaded the track today before they got hopped in here tonight. So yeah, so like I said, a big learning curve for some of these guys. And so yeah, so I mean, like you said, on the pit stop side of things, we believe it's going to be a 2-stopper no matter what. And say if you so you got the opportunities here, of course. Do you want to split the runs evenly? Do you want to maybe look at doing some sort of strategy calls? So say we always talk about Ryan Kelly. He seems to be one of those drivers that really splits these runs like kind of right in the middle if he can. So say based on that, I would suspect we would see basically the 13 car probably around lap number 40. And then again, the next time for his final schedule stop would be around lap number 80. Again, this is all pending things going green to the end. You see the leaders going around the 90 of John Brill there. We see John giving plenty of room, let those leaders on by and let them continue their fight. So always nice to see that from our racers here tonight. I think John's one of those too, where say when he's not in contention for some of these races, he always tries to make sure to give plenty of room to let the leaders kind of do what they do and see if let the race kind of unfold for him as well. Maybe try to follow these guys and learn a little bit. But right now, though, here comes Larry Yingling, though, right back after that 17 of Chad Wilkes.
Absolutely, and the 17 going to give the same courtesy, but he better watch it because there the 13 comes. Going to sneak a nose in there. He's going to take full advantage of that and go ahead and go after second place. Chad Wilkes was not expecting that move from Ryan, but with the battle Ryan and Larry have had for this points championship, Ryan's had the fastest car almost each and every week. I don't actually think he has the fastest one tonight, but I think he's got a hot rod underneath him, so he is trying to take full advantage of the 17 giving that spot away, and he will get second place from Chad Wilkes.
Yeah, so while we're watching that, say Chris Matthews and James Ledford, they had a good little fight going on as well to try to grab that 8th position between the two of them. So I'll see if we can jump back and take a look at this battle that they had going on here. As you can see, Chris to the inside of the 48 here on the front stretch coming across the start-finish line. As then they kind of went back and forth a little bit through the turns, but then I think it was out of turn number 2. Chris is just able to kind of keep that power down, use that low line to his advantage there. Because I mean, these guys just stayed side by side though for pretty much a full half lap or lap or so before Chris finally able to complete that pass and move up now. And I'm saying it's one of those things that he's been opting to start towards the back, but the way these races have trended, he's going to have to start considering qualifying, I feel like, Maxwell, just because he has really good race pace. He's always able to kind of work his way to the front, but he's always losing so much time to leaders getting through the field. Like right now, say he and Todd Merkel, Chris has gained 6 spots, Todd has gained 4 spots. Had they maybe qualified a little bit better or just opted to qualify in general, maybe having them closer to that top 5 battle with Larry, Ryan, Chad, Dale, and Kevin.
Yeah, and, you know, in those circumstances, I've seen drivers have different approaches. You know, going into a race, some just don't feel confident in their single car pace, so they'd rather just work their way through the field. Some feel like they have a lot better race pace, so they want to get that bonus point. We can't forget there is a bonus point in this league for the most positions gained each race. So could be a little strategy call he pulls there, trying to view his strengths and thinks, well, I may not be able to lead a lap or get the win, but I can get a bonus point for that and still get a decent position out of it. And he may be afraid to try to start around some of these guys. I mean, it's intimidating to start like Dale did on the front row with Larry Yingling right beside him, Chad Wilkes right behind him, and Ryan Kelly right there on the second row, you know. And we saw him lose those spots in the first couple laps because he wasn't prepared for the moves they made. You know, these guys are used to running around each other up front. Dale's not used to qualifying up front. So, perfect example of maybe what Chris Matthews is thinking, like, I don't have the pace to run up front early, and I could get myself run over or spun out by accident, so it may just be best to start in the back and pick these positions off. But I want you to see that 13 and 67, they're only about a car length and a half away from each other. And the 13's just stalking, right? And you know, we talked about pit strategy earlier, Gael. A lot of that's really been taken out with the extension of the race. The reason I say that, Ryan Kelly used to always pull the extra stop just to try to get tires, and he would always pit a little early. Now a lot of these drivers will probably be pitting around the same lap. I don't see why they would not come in at lap 40 and lap 80 and just all run it like that, because I don't see any gains from staying out just 2 or 3 extra laps. You know what I mean? So these guys are really going to have to figure out what they're going to do. And if anything, they may come in lap 38 or 39 and make it to where that last run of the race, they really try to stretch that fuel so they can get that track position.
Yeah, and that's going to be, I think the question is going to be, what is the kind of the game plan? Is it going to be maybe you try to undercut that 67 car or the 13 car? We'll see kind of. Right now, it looks like Ryan's still just slowly but surely creeping in on that 67 as is working around the 20 of Alberto Lopez. We saw hit contact earlier, unfortunately. He's definitely now got him way off the pace with that damage to the nose. But you can see, though, I mean, even with his car being as off the pace as it is, it's still not a done deal for these guys to be able to get around him, even with him giving them the low line. And so, I mean, that just shows, again, the difficulty of this track and the follow-up as well. We're down about a full second over their opening fast laps of the race. The opening laps were all in the pretty much a low 30-second bracket, or sorry, high 30-second bracket, 30.9, 30.8, somewhere in that window. These guys all now running right around the low 32s here, 32.0s or so. So say definitely the overall pace has definitely dropped by about a second. And I think that's going to be the other question too, Maxwell, is going to be when do they equalize? Well, let's say, okay, it's going to take 30 laps for them to get to their slowest point. That'll give these drivers a little bit of math to work with to figure out, okay, if I pit at this point, that's going to make me be able to kind of get around somebody until that tire equalizes. As I say that, Ryan Kelly's going to take the point there in that 13 car. So he's going to try to get his first lap sled of this race tonight.
Absolutely, and you know, going back and just trying to watch this move, because I actually missed it while you were talking there, Gael, but he sets him up out of 2, just gets that beautiful run down the backstretch, and Larry just gives it to him. He knows Ryan Kelly has got that long run pace and already stretching it out about 2.5 car lengths as we come out of turn 2, coming down the backstretch, and just, you know, going to set his pace from here. Now if I'm Ryan, these guys are watching, when is he going to pit? When is he going to pit? They know Ryan Kelly has strategy when it comes to pit road. And, man, you know, I said a while ago I didn't think Ron Kelly had the fastest car out there. I may have to retract that statement. He's just got the long run pace that he needs in this race. I think Larry Yingling's got him on the short run, But I think Ryan Kelly, hands down, has got that long run pace he's looked for each and every race. No one's been able to figure out his pace or match it much, but you know, you got a lot of guys here, these top three, trying to figure out what Ryan Kelly's going to do, because as soon as you think you've got him pegged, he changes it up. Let's not forget about Dale Knott back there in fourth, our pole sitter. He's really not that far off. For us being 35 laps into this race, he's only a second and a half off. And I'll be honest with you, when we started catching some of that lap traffic, he started having to catch them out of the corners, which means he had to make a tighter radius than the rest of these guys. So he kind of lost a little bit of ground because of that. So once he gets some fresh tires on the car, we'll see what he can do. And maybe it'll be all about that entrance into pit road like we talked about before the race started. Very, very tight getting in pit road. It's going to be so easy to overshoot it, especially on 40-lap-o tires. So it's going to be real interesting to see, Gaio, in the next few laps. As this fuel window opens up, I'd say around as early as 38. I think everybody's going to at least go to 40, though. If not, maybe 41 or 42. But once we get to lap 38 to 42, I'll be really interested to see what the strategy is and what these guys are thinking as far as fuel and how they're going to play this out. Because if you pit one lap after a guy, you could be behind them another 40 laps.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's to me the question is, does that extra lap, does it maybe give you just enough advantage on tires to make that pass, or is that track position going to be the more critical thing? And that's the thing, is we've seen Ryan Kelly, I mean, he's been one of those drivers, he's not one to be reactive. He's going to be proactive. He say, you know what, I don't want to get undercut by Larry Yingling or Chad Wilkes or Dale Knott. I'm going to be pitting a lap earlier than maybe they think I would, just to make sure that I'm the first one to make that pit stop. So we'll have to see if anybody does take that strategy or not. Right now, it looks like everybody's still going to stay out here, as we are going to start lap number 38. But like you mentioned, though, this is going to be definitely one of the toughest pit roads to get onto. Just the way these corners are, and it's just you get to the flat, and I mean that pit line comes up very quickly. You saw in practice some drivers trying to get familiar with it, and a lot of them just either overdriving and getting into the grass, or just having to kind of regroup and get back on track and run another lap. So, but saying that, though, I mean, we were talking about Ryan getting around Larry. Larry's not letting him get away. He is right back onto that 13's rear bumper here, and I say right now these two are starting to stretch it out just a little bit the last couple laps. So I think Larry's definitely been finding something here to kind of keep that 13. That might be why he let him by, try to learn a little bit from him, and I think he's putting that to really good use right now.
And the one thing I'm seeing, Gael, is that 67. Remember what we talked about in our laps around the track? I said you wanted to be right on the bottom. That 67 is hugging that yellow line down there right on the bottom. You can see it right there in 3 and 4, just hugging it. Where the 13 is running about a half lane up. And I noticed in practice the 13 was doing that. And he makes good speed off the corner and was able to gap himself a little bit doing that. But he's hurting his tires. There's been quite a few laps coming off turn 2 especially, that I've seen that back end hanging out big time, getting loose off, as he even does there just a little bit. You still see that slide from the rear end. So definitely been more abusive on his rear tires than the 67 has. But I said I didn't think Ryan Kelly was maybe the fastest car. And here's what I'm saying is Larry Yingling actually comes down pit road right now, being proactive with Chad Wilkes as well. But that 67...
And I think they all says Chad Wilkes, he was the first to take the call. He hopped in pit road. He's already heading out now. And I think that's exactly what we saw there. We saw Larry, Dale, and Kevin. They all react to it. However, Ryan Kelly, kind of like you said, he always switches it up. So he's going a little different tonight. He's going longer now this time than the rest of these guys. So we'll have to see. This is kind of one of those crucial points in this race. Does Ryan react and now come in? Or is he going to keep stretching? He's going to keep going here, Maxwell. So Ryan Kelly right now, he's thinking long run pace in this 13 car. So he's going to stretch this a couple more laps, it looks like. Maybe try to run this one out. And we'll see how this is all going to pan out here as they finish up their pit stop. So we'll need to see where everybody cycles through. So I'm going to jump over to Larry here in the 67. Looks like he's able to win the race off of pit road with Dale Knott. But here comes Chad Wilkes. Chad pitted that one lap earlier than the 67 car. And it looks like he's just going to be able to clear the 67. So there's that track position we talked about. So right now, net gain for Chad Wilkes. He's going to jump back up in front of that 67 of Larry Yingling.
Absolutely. And the 13 on pit road now as we speak, as he comes down to the service of his crew. He stays out 2 extra laps. So my thought process is he going to, if he does that again the next run, he sets himself up for the last pit stop to have to take a little less fuel, make that last pit stop a little bit quicker. and possibly get his track position back then. But the risk in all of this is staying out 2 laps, knowing you're about a second to second and a half off pace of fresh tires. Are you going to be able to recover that 2 to 3 second gap you're going to lose here? As Ryan Kelly comes off pit road, let's see where he ends up cycling out, Guile.
Yeah, so he just leaves pit road, and you can see here comes Chad Wilkes now, Larry England right behind him. So he's definitely going to lose those top 2 spots and lose a couple of seconds to him as well, because I say he's still having to get up to speed while they're kind of pretty much full song here. I think he's going to be able to hold off Dale Knott, however, for that 3rd position. Looks like he's been able to separate him enough. But right now we had a few drivers stay out to lead a lap. It's Chris Matthews, he's in pit road now. He stayed out to get a bonus point. Dale Willoughby doing the same now in that 7-car turn, going to try to get a lap led as well. And then I believe that should just about complete our cycle of pit stops. So we'll keep an eye to see if Dale Willoughby, if he's going to hit pit road this time. And it looks like, yep, here he comes. It looks like lap 45, just about at the number we thought they could max it out at. So while he hits pit road, that's going to now put the fight for the lead and saying that it's on track as well. Larry Yingling just clears Chad Wilkes there. Chad's going to try to get right back onto that rear bumper of him. But you can see, again, you look out the back of those cars, and there's a little ways to go until you see that 13 of Ryan Kelly. So we'll see if those 2 extra laps, if they come into play, if they can help him on the long run here.
3.8 seconds back, Guile. So we said 2 to 3 seconds. He actually lost even more than that. So now the only thing that's going to be able to play in that 13's favor is his long run pace. And he's going to have to hope that the leaders kind of run into some lap traffic that kind of gives them a little bit of some fits here. But here's the only other strategy I've thought of this 13 could run. And it's risky, but it could work. Does he stay out the extra 2 laps early on in this event, have fresher tires throughout the run, and then instead of pitting at lap 80 like everybody else, maybe he knows he can go those 2 extra laps. So maybe he comes in at 78 and gets that 2-lap advantage back and forces them in a position they don't want to be in as far as, you know, when they pit. And he ends up getting the momentum and gets to lead the last segment. So that's the only thing I can think of, but he's going to have to shorten that gap up here. He's about 2.5 back there at the line. So right where we thought he'd land, about between the 2 and 3 second mark. But he really probably needs to get within 1.5 seconds to a second for sure to make this strategy work, where he can gain that time back, because I don't see them waiting till lap 80 to pit if he comes at lap 78. So that's going to be the pit strategy we watch here. But for the rest of the field, unless we get a caution, I think this is kind of a 5-horse race here, because 6th place is already 12.3 seconds back. 7th place, 14.7 back. Without a caution, I don't think those drivers are going to make up that kind of time on the likes of Larry Yingling, Chad Wilkes, Ryan Kelly, Dale Knott, and Kevin Freese. This top 5 is really showing to be the class of the field tonight.
We just about had one. Unfortunately, Eric Laurie had a bit of a moment, went off track. Try to see if we can take a look at it here. What happened? It looks like he just got loose out of turn number 2, and so looped it down into the grass. But I think he was far enough off track, and then so that's going to keep us under green. But that could have been exactly the yellow you were talking about, and that was about to potentially be a huge break for one driver, which was the 20 of Alberto Lopez. He actually has been able to stretch this thing out to lap number 50 just about. Was trying to see if he can maybe catch that timely caution, get himself back on the lead lap. Unfortunately, didn't pan out for him. So right now, say we stay under green, and like I said, Larry Yingling, Chad Wilkes right now are top 2. Looking at the lap times again, that's going to be the big thing to keep an eye on. And last couple times around, Ryan Kelly has been closing the gap. You can see on the ticker now it's under 2 seconds between himself and Larry. So he is slowly but surely reeling these guys in. And let's go ahead. I'm going to pull up our pit stop info here, so we can see exactly when all these drivers pitted, to show kind of exactly what we're talking about. And I mean, you see everybody's all within about the same distance. The 2 outliers, though, are Ryan Kelly and then Chris Matthews. I'll say are the 2 that really went the furthest on fuel at 42 and 43. And again, it's only a 2 to 3 lap difference, but that stuff makes such a big difference for these guys. And that's where you see a lot of time, unfortunately, time can be gained or lost here. As you see 13 working around Gabe Butler. Gabe giving him plenty of room, let him get after it again. So it's going to be very interesting to see If the strategy works for this 13 car, is he able to close that gap back up, which he is slowly but surely doing, Maxwell. He's now down to about 1.75 or so. So he is closing the gap, but again, we talked about a little earlier, is kind of that equalization time. When will that 13 car kind of start running the same lap times as the 67 and the 17? I think that's going to be the name of the game here.
And I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. The one didn't realize it, but just being in front of the 13 for a lap or so killed and stalled the momentum the 13 had. When you encounter dirty air at this track with the setup as tight as it is with the front end, you really have a big issue you fight there of just losing the nose when you start going in the corner. And Ryan, when he came out, his saving grace was Larry and Chad were in dirty air with each other. He had clean air, so he was able to maximize his tires at the beginning there and try to be easy on them and make time. He had the whole track to himself. But as he caught that one, he really started losing the nose and stalled him out just a little bit. And now as the 67 is battling with the 20 here and the 17 also in the mix, this is a perfect storm for Ryan Kelly. But he's got to hope when he gets to the 20 that the 20 just pretty well hits the brakes and just lets him by quickly, as Ryan is now within a second and a half, which is about where he needs to be. But I really think he'd be a lot better off if he could get to within 1 second of his drivers. That would really make the pit strategy we talked about earlier be maximized to its full potential.
Yeah, exactly right. And so, I'm saying Alberto Lopez, he's in a tough spot there, Maxwell, because he had just pitted, so he's got about 8 or so lap fresher tires than these guys in front of him. Still is kind of limping that little bit of damage. Looks like he opted not to use the fast repair as of yet. You can see that left front damage to his car. So unfortunately, that's going to hurt his pace a little bit. But it's one of the things, you have the fresher tires. You want to stay after, you want to fight because you don't want to go 2 down. You want to stay that 1 lap down. That opens up so many more opportunities. But it's just one of those things, you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, unfortunately. So and see he's unfortunately had to succumb to those places to our top 3 now. And like I said, that gap's still continuing to close little by little now, just over a second and a quarter now between Ryan Kelly to Larry Yingling. So he's doing what he needs to do. Like I said, I mean, they last pitted around lap 39 to 42 was the range. We're now at lap 56, so it's been about 15 or so laps since they pitted. And so say we talked about that equalization point. We'll have to see if that number, when that's going to happen. Right now, everybody's still running in about the mid 31 second bracket, so they've got about a half a second or so before I think they really get down to that low 32s where we really saw them before pit stops.
Absolutely. And going back a couple laps ago, remember the conversation we had about lap traffic really affecting things. Ryan Kelly was on a tear, gaining time, but the 20, instead of conceding the position to third place when he's already, 2 laps down at this point, decided to race with Ryan Kelly for that corner, and it made it to where he gained like 1 or 2 hundredths of a second instead of the tenths he's been cutting out. But Ryan Kelly now within 1.1 seconds of the leader. Feel like he's in a great spot now. We gotta hope now over the long run. Now it's at a second, right at a second. So he's met that goal. He is back in position with him. We've got to hope now that those tires will hold on for the duration. Has he used them up too early? Did he fight too hard to get where he's at? And as the long run goes on, are the 17 and 67 going to extend that gap on him? It's become a 3-car race after pit stops. We see Dale Knott now 5 seconds back. Kevin Freese 6 seconds back. And look at 6th place, 18.1 seconds back. The top 10 are the only drivers on the lead lap right now. And 10th place is actually 25 seconds back. So about 5 more seconds on track, and you're going to see 10th place start to get lapped, and our leaders really encounter some lap traffic. If this stays green, Gael, would not shock me if the top 5 become the only cars left on the lead lap.
Yeah, it's very possible. Again, I'd say a new and challenging track for a lot of drivers, let's say. And so it's one of those things that say some drivers are able to wrap their heads around it much quicker than others. But so right now it is a good battle, though, for that 6th spot. Todd Merkel has been slowly but surely creeping up on Jack Walls. And while they've been doing that, same thing goes for Chris Matthew. He's been able to bring that gap down a little bit as well. Again, he actually also pitted that. He was actually one of the latest cars to pitting at lap 43 compared to 40 and 41 for Merkel and Walls. So Chris has a little bit of pace on these guys, about a tenth or so per lap the last couple laps. You see a little bobble there off of 2. But we're going to jump back up front here because here comes Ryan Kelly. He's going to try to peek a nose to Chad Wilkes. Not close enough yet. Because like you said last time, I think that 13 car does not want to waste any time getting around that 17 car to make sure he has a chance to maybe try to kind of close that gap and get back after that 67 as well, because we saw again he's got actually 3-lap fresher tires than Chad Wilkes. So again, it doesn't sound like a lot, but there's those times that little bit makes a huge difference. So Ryan Kelly trying to see if he can find a way to get around Chad Wilkes here.
And Ryan Kelly truly showing what kind of car he has here tonight, Gael. The fact that his tires have not quite equalized yet. You see the run, he's getting through the center. Back end's kicking out a little bit now that he's right behind the 17. But these two passes are going to be a whole lot harder than the rest of them he's made. Those other guys were lapped down. They were going to concede that position eventually. 17 is fighting to stay in second. He's fighting to stay close to that 67. And that 67 is loving what he's seeing. These two guys duking it out. The 13 getting in the 17's head. That way the 17 forgets that the 67's even out there leading. Chad's too worried about what's behind him, missing the bottom there and giving it to Ryan as he sniffs a little bit of clean air. He's going to suck within half a car length here on the backstretch. Peeking the nose out, looking like he may try to make a dive into turn 3.
Oh, it's going to be close. I don't know, there's probably about a paper between the two there. Saying that's about as close as you can get without contact, and that's just how much those two trust each other. I'll say, like we mentioned, I mean, Ryan, let's say these guys race with each other. I think they're in the same Discord, teammates, but they're going to race each other as hard as they possibly can. So we'll see now, can Ryan get the power down on the exit? You can see tries to slide up, couldn't do it though. So that's going to allow Chad to get some momentum on the top side, and while they're doing this, it's going to allow Larry to sneak that little bit further away. Just give him that little bit of extra breathing room over this 13, which it looks like he should now complete the pass out of 4. So about a full lap it took to complete that pass for Ryan Kelly.
And I know the 17 was wanting to hold on there, but if the 17 wanted any chance to stay in contact with that 67, he needed to let that 13 by once he got the nose underneath him. Once they went side by side through 1 and 2 the last lap, 3 and 4, he needed to just give it. But he ended up fighting still and hanging on, and now that's caused both of them to lose about 2 to 3 tenths off of the race leader.
Yeah, last time by Larry ran a 31.80 to Ryan's 31.90. Chad ran a 32.1, so there's about 3 tenths of a loss there for Chad there in that whole cycle. We'll see how things cycle around this time around. About 0.05 of a second quicker for Ryan Kelly that last time by. But I think just that extra lap or 2 of Chad Wilkes is starting to kind of hurt that 17 car a little bit here. I say I'm looking at the lap times. There's only about 3 cars left in the 31-second bracket. Actually, there's a few more, I should say. But right now, say Larry Yingling, Ryan Kelly, and then Dale Knott are those top 3 drivers, top 4 drivers that are in the 31-second bracket still. So I say the pace is definitely still there for those guys. I mean, Chad Wilkes, he ran a 32.03, so it's not like he's far off, but we are getting right to the edge, as we mentioned, right up to the edge of that 32-second bracket like we saw last time around, about that 1 second fall off. However, last time by about a 1/10.5. That last time by Ryan Kelly starting to close that gap again.
Absolutely. And you know, with Ryan Kelly being now within a half a second of Larry Yingling, we take the strategy book and we can now open up some new plays here. So we talk a lot in this series about pit strategy. And with these drivers as close as they are to each other, it's what it comes down to most of the time. So as the times start to stabilize between the 67 and the 13, we now start looking at what kind of pit strategies they can pull off as we get ready to approach lap 70 here in about 2 laps. We see that Ryan Kelly now has some options. We talked about him maybe coming in 2 laps earlier and trying to get that jump on Yingling and Wilkes. But I don't know about that now. Now that he's shown that he can go from 2 seconds back, 2.5 back, and run them down and be right in their tire tracks, does he try to stay out again a couple extra laps? Or even does he try to push it instead of to lap 82, does he take those 2 extra laps he saved and push it to 84 and have 4 extra laps on his tires?
Yeah,
you know, the strategies are endless here, Gael.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. As I think Ryan's going to be probably doing the math in his head while they're running around here at, like you said, about 100 probably 70 or so down the straights, down to about 130s in the turn. So while they start thinking about that, before we get that pit stop window, let's run through our field here, show where some of your drivers that you like to root on are sitting at the moment, get a little bit more info from them. And that's going to be right now our race leader, Larry Yingling, 67 car. Behind him, Ryan Kelly. Obviously, we've been talking about them plenty tonight. Chad Wilkes, same boat for him as well. And then, like I said, a little bit further back, though, say off the group after that pit stop cycle, lost some time during that sequence. They got the 94 of Dale Knott. Still running great lap times, just unfortunately lost a lot of track position during the pit stop cycle, though. And you got Kevin Freas rounding out the top 5, just about a second off of Dale. So those two aren't done with each other yet, I have a feeling. And then a little further back, 6th position, is that 83 of Jack Walls, and they are in a nice little fight here. You've got Jack there in 6th, Todd Merkel right behind him in the 7th position, and then Chris Matthews right there as well in 8th. So this is a 3-car battle here between these guys. And like I mentioned earlier, the 2 and the 92 have definitely been the highest climbers of the race thus far. And then rounding out our top 10, you've got right there the 48 of James Ledford, and in the 10th position, the 88 of Michael Spell. Right now, those are the last 2 cars on the lead lap as things run. And for drivers a lap down here, the first car one down at the moment is Dale Willoughby in the 7 machine. And unfortunately, Gabe Butler, he's down 1 lap, and it's not because of anything he did pace-wise. It's just unfortunate that contact between himself and the 1 cost him a ton of track position. So it's just unfortunate that caution didn't come out to help his chances out. So right now he's sitting solidly in 12th, trying to chase down that 7 car to see if he can get himself in that lucky dog position. As he works, trying to work around the 20 of Alberto Lopez, who is in 13th. Unfortunately, it was the contact between the 2 of them that sent him kind of off track, unfortunately. And so that's put Alberto 2 laps down. And we also saw Eric Laurie. He had that moment there where could have brought out the yellow a little bit earlier. However, it was off track, so he stayed green. And right now he is the last car on track here in the 14th position. Unfortunately, John Brill in the 90 has retired from the event. However, things are tightening back up front again here. It's down to about 2.5 tenths of a second.
Absolutely. So my question is, it's not that Ryan Kelly's caught now, but as we're about 5 laps away from pit stops happening, what does the 13 do? It took him the entire run to get back to Larry Yingling. And if you think about it, he's still at a net loss because he was ahead of the 67 before pit stops. But he has made his way back to within proximity. You know, I'd probably say within 7 tenths of probably where he was, because he was probably, 2-3 tenths ahead of Larry before the pit stops happened. So we kind of do that average math, and he's about half-second difference.
Yep.
What does he do? Does he pit early this time and try to get a gap and hope he can hold on to it with clean air? Or does he try to stay out an extra, maybe 1 lap this time to where it's not as big of a gap, and he tries to run them down that way and have the fresher tires? I really don't know. I think I'd rather be on defense than offense here at the end. I think I'd rather be able to know I've got a good car, know I've got clean air like the 67 has, and know that I can hold on to it, because the 67's held on to it the whole run. I'm sure the 13 would like to do that for the last run, but notice what I said earlier. We're starting to catch the tail end of the field. 30 seconds back, we see the 48 and 88 side by side actually battling. The 48 coming down pit road. And these guys are going to start becoming a factor. They're lapped traffic here. So now it's time to see if that affects the 67 of Yingling, if that helps the 13, or if it hurts either one of them. We're going to have to keep an eye on that as we get into these closing laps after the second round of pit stops.
Yes, and this is where I'm going to be watching the 88 here. I think if I'm Ryan Kelly, if Larry stays out, maybe if he gets close enough where he's going to have to start making it past that next lap. That's where maybe if you're Ryan Kelly, if Larry doesn't pit, you jump in that lap before him, see if maybe he loses another half a second or whatever it may be behind the 88 car. But you can see that he just hasn't gotten close enough yet to Michael Spell. And I do need to mention, here comes Chad Wilkes in pit road here at 78. He was the earliest last time by, so he's going to drop in a little bit earlier as well. Again, this time he seems like he just loses his pace at the very, very end of the run. So we'll have to keep an eye on that to see if that's going to follow suit as well for this time. But when you look at that, you mentioned the dirty air. He's gotten to the 88 car within about that half a second or second or so. But man, and here it goes.
Here comes the 13. Yep. Here comes the 13.
Exactly.
Perfect strategy. Knows Larry Yingling struggling. Knows he's behind that turbulent air. Beautiful, beautiful strategy. Ryan Kelly had that option. It's 1 lap later than I thought it would be. I think he's still going to have the gap on Chad Wilkes, and he's definitely going to have the tires on Yingling. Now, this lap, does Yingling respond?
I think he has to. We'll have to take a look, as well as I think, unfortunately, Kevin Freas may have had a moment on pit entry. And you see Larry, he is drifting that car through 3 and 4. Oh, he's going to come in right behind Michael Spell as well. Might affect how aggressive, how aggressive he was able to get into the pits there. We saw Ryan Kelly, a very aggressive pit entry. You'll see if hopefully, yep, it looks like he's down and away already. So now we're going to watch this battle here between these two to see when this when it cycles out where they're going to be. But we can't forget about Chad Wilkes. Again, he pitted about 2 laps earlier, so he might be able to use those fresh tires one more time like we saw him do that last time around.
And definitely entrance to pit road, I think Larry Yingling was hurt, having to be behind that 88, not knowing how he was going to make his pit stop or not. I think that affected his entry. We're going to have to look back at that data after the cycle of stops. But Larry and Ryan come in, and everybody now floods in the 94 in. We heard Kevin Freese came in a lap earlier. So everybody's starting to pit right here to try to make it to the end. Let's see how this shakes out.
And one big thing, actually, as I said, there goes Ryan Kelly now going to take the point. Now, can Larry get out in front of Chad Wilkes? He cannot. So that's going to drop Larry to 3rd place. That 1 extra lap is going to cost him 2 positions there. And so I'll say we still have a few drivers yet to make their last pit stop. Todd Merkel in the pits now. Chris Matthews, he's going to stretch it like he did last time. Going to go a little farther in that 92 car, get another lap or so led under his belt. But I'm going to jump back now, unfortunately, and say never want to find these things and never want to show them. But unfortunately, say we'll take a look, see what happened to Kevin Freese on his pit entry here. So we'll jump back to speed here as he heads into pit road. And we'll take a look, and you see he starts getting it woed down here and just a little bit too much rear brake. And that's I've seen worse pit spins there. Maybe he cost himself a second or 2 there, but that's actually not as bad as I thought it might have been. So no harm, no foul. Car's still good. Maybe cost himself just a little bit there. And as I say that, here comes Chris Matthews. He's pitting now for his final scheduled service of the race. And that is going to cycle the lead back to Ryan Kelly, who now is going to enjoy about a 0.6 of a second lead over Chad Wilkes. And now it's going to be Larry Yingling who's going to have to do the chasing here, Maxwell, to try to get back to the point.
I think you have let a hungry driver with a long run car get clean air and not have to work it early in this race. I think these boys have messed up. Chad Wilkes did what he had to do. His car was off the pace. It was slowing down. It's going to hurt him at the end of this run, but he had to do what he had to do. The 13, brilliant pit work to know that the 88 was slowing Yingling down. If the 13 wins this race, we can go back to that pit stop decision of knowing the 67 had slowed pace, Ryan realizing it, went ahead and ducked onto pit road saying this is my chance. And with the 88 of Spell also pitting with Yingling, we have to think that affected it just a little bit, and that may be the reason he's even behind Wilkes to begin with. But right now, Yingling not really making up a bunch of time like Ryan did earlier in the race. But yeah, I think Ryan's actually just trying to hold a steady pace right now. He's in tire safe mode up front.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same. And so I actually pulled up on our little ticker here on the right side on the broadcast. So I have the pit lane time. So basically, it's including the time in the pits, but as well as driving through the pits. And it tells the tale. So you see most of the lead drivers here are all in the 44-45 second bracket on the pit stop for at least our top 3. However, Ryan Kelly 44.5, Chad 44.8, Larry 46.2 for his pit lane time on that on this last stop that he just had. So right there, you lose just about 2 seconds just on pit road itself. So I think, like you said, if he'd been able to get into that 44 second bracket like Ryan and Chad were able to do, that would probably at least put him in that second position, possibly be right on that 13 car as well. So those little things, they add up to a big amount, and that's what we mentioned, that maybe that's where you see you're coming up with Michael Spell. Hey, maybe I'm going to pit here that before Larry gets to him, and that's exactly what Ryan did, and he was able to work it to perfection.
Absolutely, and like I said, Ryan kind of keeping the gap similar with Chad. I think Ryan overall has a faster car than Chad, but just keeping on pace, 0.7 ahead. It's about where they've been holding serve the past few laps. Larry is gaining time, but when he gets to the 17, he's going to have to get around him. And since the 17's on fresher tires than when Ryan Kelly caught him earlier, you know, they're not too deep in a run yet. I think it's going to be a hard pass to make here for a few laps. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And that turbulent air on that 67 is going to do nothing but slow him down. And when Ryan's ready, thinks he's got the pace to go ahead and start laying down some laps, you're going to watch that 13 start to take off in clean air, and it's going to be really hard for that 67 to run it down. Not saying he can't, not saying he won't, I've seen the 67 of Larry Yingling make a lot of moves in a race, man, to actually gain time when I thought it was impossible. So he can do it. It's just, in my opinion, he's got to be full-fledged. He's got to go right now. Cannot be waiting around much longer.
Yeah, saying we'll see. Maybe he makes a big move on the 17, like we saw Ryan Kelly do a little earlier. But like you mentioned before, Larry just right on the edge of that seam to the apron there, getting as low as he humanly can. Saying the one person who's loving what he sees right now, one of the arch enemies of that 67 of Larry Yingling, the 93 of Kevin Brown. Unfortunately, Kevin not able to make tonight. I think work commitments was able to, kept him from tonight, but he's able to now watch the broadcast. And so he's kind of got a little bit of the what do you call it? The peanut gallery going in that 93 camp, to say rooting on Ryan Kelly against Larry Yingling here. Those two have a fun little rivalry between the two of them, just to kind of poke and prod at one another. As you mentioned, though, Larry wasting no time. He's going to get inside the 17 car, but now he's got to make sure he can complete this pass in turn number 1 and 2.
And the 17 is not going to give it up, because if he gives it up now, he's not going to be able to get back by Yingling. So look at the big power move the 17 tries to pull in 1 and 2, but he's just not going to have the grip. That front end just binding up. Setup is so tight that it's really hard to try to run outside the preferred groove. So Larry Yingling going to get that position, but definitely going to lose a couple of tenths in the process. Now if I'm Ryan Kelly, I want to maintain that 1 second gap. I want to increase the pace here. I want to go ahead and start going with about 29 laps to go. And I want to start making my move to be able to hold this gap so that Yingling doesn't have a chance to get close.
Yeah, so that's going to be the thing now for Ryan. Does he manage the gap, or does he just kind of try to build and make sure that Larry can't get to him? I'll say both these guys very smart about what they got to do here, so we'll have to keep an eye out on that one. But right now, we talked about traffic. Got something coming back into play again here. As right now, I say we've obviously been talking about our top 3. They've been able to sneak away from the field over the course of this run. Dale Knott, he is now solidly into that 4th position. I say, unfortunately, about 10 seconds or so off the lead, but he's got about 5 seconds over Kevin Freeze there in 5th. But I say it's going to all kind of come to a front here very soon, because the leaders are going to be coming up on a handful of drivers here. The first at the moment is going to be the 93 of Chris Matthews. Chris, however, has about 3 lap fresher tires than those guys behind him. And he's also going to be trying to work over Todd Merkel, try to get up to 7th, and then not too far ahead of Todd, about 2.5 seconds, is the 83 of Jack Wallace, who Jack's been having a really quiet but really solid race. Started 6th, running 6th. Kind of one of the best of the rest here at the moment, saying again that that's kind of what Jack does, is he runs right at his pace and just is able to really nail, pretty much run at his capacity, and that's what he's been doing here again tonight. So however, keep an eye on that interval. It's dropped to within that second, like you were talking about, Maxwell. Larry is starting to pick up the pace here, maybe trying to force a little bit of pressure in that 13 car, make him use the stuff up a little harder than he wants to.
I'll tell you what, though, this is the smoothest and most consistent I've seen that 13 all night long. He's not sliding the rear end off the corners. I still think he hasn't went 100%. He's maybe 95, but he has not went 100% in that 13 car yet. He is waiting, and he may be wanting the 67 to get close to him so he can get him aero tight to keep him, to use his tires up. He may want to go ahead and let him use them up. That way he can just take off at the end. I really think the 13 has the pace to hold on to this lead unless the 67 is held back all race long. But I don't think so. But with it being a 3-car race up front, I hate to say that I'm close to right, but Gael, I called that the top 5 could be the only guys left on the lead lap at the end of this event. And Jack Wall is 27.3 seconds back. He's about 3 seconds away from being lapped in that 6th position. These top 5 have been in a league of their own tonight, taking off, and even really branching off into 2 segments now. You've got the top 3 that are really all by themselves, and then you've got 4th and 5th kind of. If it wasn't for the pit stop, Kevin Freeze would probably be right there with Dale not running. But, man, that's top 5 and top 3 just showing them how it's done tonight here at Nashville Superspeedway.
Yeah, so I'm pulling up the kind of our lap ticker, or lap tracker, I should say, between Ryan and Larry here. And basically, Larry's been consistently just a little bit quicker lap after lap. It's been about a half a tenth, a tenth. This time again, about just over a tenth of a second quicker than Ryan Kelly. So you can see that gap's down to now just about half a second. So I'll say Larry is definitely going to try to keep Ryan honest as much as he can here. So getting very interesting between these guys up front. Like I said, Larry now holding about that half a second gap between him. And I think we mentioned the traffic. This is where it's going to come into play here, I think. Who can get through the traffic the quickest, because you know they're going to get there. I expect we'll see the drivers up front give a lot of room for the leaders, let them fight it out for the race win, because they say we got 23 to go. Probably the leaders will get them by about 20 to go. But I mean, everybody's in their own little battles here. I mean, Chris Matthews, he's right on the gearbox of that 2 of Todd Merkel. You know he wants to grab that 7th position, knowing that Jack Walsh isn't that far ahead of him as well. Maybe be able to get a couple spots and get all the way up into that 6th position. I'm saying that would give him, I believe, 8 total spots gained throughout the race, which would easily lock him as our highest climber as well. So it's one of those things you kind of got to balance the aggression of your own battle versus what's going on around you. Because you can see, I mean, Ryan's slowly but surely creeping in, but they're all running within just a couple hundredths of each other. Ryan running 31.60, Chris ran a 31.62, so they're not slow by any means. So that's going to make it all the more difficult for that 13 car.
Absolutely, but the one thing I think he's got going for him on his end, he's been the only driver I've watched that has moved up either a half lane to a full lane and still kept the momentum and still kept the speed up when he wasn't, trying to pass somebody. So he can make that second lane work if he needs to. I don't know if the 67's got quite that pace up top that 13 does. That's another reason why I think the 67's going to have a hard time trying to pass Ryan Kelly. But I'll tell you right now, Gaio, if this race was the typical 100 laps, you'd be looking at Ryan Kelly as your winner right here, pulling off the perfect strategy. But we've got 20 extra laps to go that we're not accustomed to, so this is where things get real interesting here as this fuel burns off, as the tires start burning. 20 to go here. Man, lap cars in front. This could be huge, Gaio. We're going to have to sit back and see how this race unfolds.
Yeah, so we're approaching kind of that make or break point, I think, of the race. And we say that, but at the same time, I say Ryan Kelly might be thinking like, oh man, if that was it, that would have been for the win. But we've seen Larry. I mean, he just works the field numbers so well, and so I mean, we did our practice runs. We saw the drivers could go about 45, 46 maybe laps on fuel. I think we may have even seen 47 here or there. So you kind of made you wonder, all right, who would be able to clutch it, save it, go to lap 50, and we could have had the bounce between, do you want to fuel save, do you just want to run and make the 2 stops? And so it was one of those things where we didn't want to kind of force drivers to be in between a tough situation. So opted to stretch this race out a little bit longer to open it up to make it for sure a 2-stop race should we go green, which we've obviously been experiencing tonight. So so right now say it's still really honest. I mean, right now, again, lap time wise, these guys are all within just a couple hundredths of each other. Last time by Ryan Kelly about 700ths of a second quicker. But again, though, Chris Matthews ran an 81 to Ryan's 81 to Ryan's 78. So I mean, that 92 car, he's got pace, and they're also not too far now. They're within a second on Jack Walsh, who he's being hounded by Gabe Butler in the 1 car. Again, Gabe unfortunately caught out with with an incident with the 20 car. That's why he's down a lap. So I don't think he's been able to show his true pace tonight. So while Jack's having to watch his mirrors, maybe slowing him down a little bit, and that's going to bring Todd and Chris right into this mix, right as Ryan and Larry are going to be getting right back to him. And Larry's been able to drop that gap just a little bit here. Again, about a 1/10.5 for Larry advantage over Ryan Kelly the last time by.
And that's that lap traffic up in front, taking that air off the 13. The 13 has been known to me to be a little bit better in traffic than the 67. Like, I think when we get to this point in the run, the fastest car is going to be that 13. But if it was just short run to the end, I feel like the 67 had a great shot to get the win. But I'm not sitting here saying the 67 is not going to make the pass on Ryan as it continues kind of sneaking in slowly but surely. But when it gets to being behind another car in traffic, I feel like that 13 just has a slight edge over the 67 as far as how he can get through them. But it's just like when they got behind Spell right before pit stops. It's like Ryan Kelly has stalled out and he just can't do much else. Or is he trying not to even get in that battle, trying to stay away from those cars, knowing they could cost him this win tonight at Nashville?
Well, so he's not going to be able to do it too much more because Larry's now down to under 0.3 of a second behind, just about a quarter of a second now for that 67. And we were watching there, Chris Matthews tried to take a peek under the 2 of Todd Merkel there, entering 3. Todd had none of, though. He sent it deep into 3 and was able to make it stick and hold on to that spot. I said this is right now here between these two is a battle for the 7th position. And I said not that far in front. You see the 83 right there, Jack Wells, that yellow Pennzoil car. That's the other position there that Chris is trying to get to as well for that 6th position. However, Todd, of course, he's in the same boat as well. But yeah, like you said, though, I mean, it's just, I think, right, Ryan Kelly just kind of stalled out a little bit behind these guys. I'm saying we're now approaching here. We're under 15 to go here. Next time by is going to be 13 to go. So yeah, so I mean, right now it's really anybody's race here for this win. And like I said, I mean, these guys are also fighting for that position. So Ryan's going to be kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place right here.
I really think it's aerodynamics, Gael. I think the aero dependency of these cars at such a big track like this, with it being this tight of a setup as we have with the front end, I really think they get behind another car, they're just losing the nose. And I think Ryan's just doing everything he can to hold the bottom. He's trying to make sure that he doesn't lose the air to just start sliding up the track. But still notice he's running that half lane higher than that 67. That 67's been glued to the bottom all race long, and that has been the preferred line. And he does make up time when he does that. But I think once he gets so close to Ryan, he loses that nose, and he starts sliding that front end. So as this race goes on, though, I do believe Ryan Kelly is going to have to get past the 92 and the 2 both, or Larry's going to pass him. I think he's got to go after those guys, and he's got to pass them as if that depended on the race.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, again, just the pace these guys have. I mean, they're just a couple hundredths off of each other. It was a 31.99, actually 32.05, I should say, for Ryan Kelly last time by. Chris Matthews, he ran a 32.11. So again, just about a half a tenth faster for Ryan Kelly. So again, it's not like he's a huge amount faster. Say those guys opted to pit a little bit later, have a little bit fresher tires than that 13. But you see right there, the big exit speed for that 13 car, actually able to separate himself from Larry Yingling just a little bit there. And now look at Ryan, he's starting to really hug that inside line like you had mentioned there, Max, what Larry was doing. So maybe Ryan's starting to maybe try to take that line away from the 67 here a bit.
Absolutely, and the 67, what I saw was exactly what we've been talking about. He gets so close to Ryan, tries to get in there on the bottom deep, and he just washes up is what happens. He gets so close to the 13 and just washes up the track. And maybe that's why Ryan hasn't been in a huge rush to get to these cars, because he doesn't want to wash up the track. And the 67 slipped right up underneath him, knowing how he's been eating up the bottom. But now he's right here in their wake. This is the battle for the win. And believe it or not, folks, this is coming down to lap cars and how they move out of the way. Because they can't just move. They're racing for position within the top 10. And with points on the line and with the playoffs coming up in a couple of weeks, this is huge. So what does the 13 do to try to, 1, get around these cars, and 2, stay in front of that 67 for the race win?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's the thing is, I mean, we got to mention is that 92 car of Chris Matthews, he's 3rd in points right now, and he's been solid week in and week out. You can see he is hounding that 2 car now of Todd Merkel. He wants to get that spot. He probably feels like he could actually get away from that 13 of Ryan Kelly if he was able to get that pass done. So say this is where Ryan Kelly's probably going to be really starting to stress out a little bit. If these 2 get side by side in front of him, then what do you do? Again, you see Chris, he's going to peek to the inside of that 2 car, but can't quite get the nose underneath. And again, Todd's going to send it into 3 there to keep him behind him. So it's going to make Chris wash up a little bit there. And again, it's just bringing Ryan ever so close to these 2. And so that's, again, and if you're Chris Matthews, you're in a tough spot here because you don't want to give up the track position, because if you do, you're probably done trying to get that 2 car. So you just have to balance that. You see Chris, again, great run there through 1. Gets right again back to almost able to get to the outside of that 2 car out of 2. But say right now, Ryan Kelly, Larry Yingling starting to creep in that picture ever so closer.
And this is affecting the 13. As we came out of 2, the car wiggled on exit. The air is starting to affect that 13. He has got to make the move. And really and truthfully, I know they're trying to stay on the lead lap. I know it's 5-4 to go, and they're really just trying to do everything they can to hold position here, or 5 to go, 6 to go. They need to get out of the way. They need to move out of the way of the leaders, and they can still battle, but they need to let these 2 go by. Because if it comes down to a race win being decided because of these 2 holding them up, as it looks, is they going to get tight here off of 4? that's going to be no bueno in this league. Okay, so
well, and you see it right
13
there.
makes it around the 92.
Yep.
Yes.
As soon as Chris saw the 13 get underneath him, he rolled out of it. He let those 2 on by. So now he's going to try to regroup and do the same. But so now Ryan Kelly, his next job, he's got to find a way to get around Todd Merkel. And it looks like Todd. Yep, there goes Todd. He's going to hug the inside here. Let these guys work around the top side to see if now it's big for Larry. He's got to be able to clear him on entry, and I think he's just going to do it. Then look at Chris Matthews. He's going to try to use that to his advantage, work the momentum on the top there. Really great driving there by Todd and by Chris here, fighting tooth and nail here for this 7th spot. This fight will not stop between the 2 of them. But now let's say this gives us 4 to go here. Now let's give them a little bit more clean air to that 13 and the 67. So those guys fought as hard as they could in front of these guys, and they're going to continue that fight now right behind them there.
Absolutely, and I give huge props to Todd Merkel and Chris Matthews for what they did. They held their own positions. They didn't try to overtake and all that mess. They're battling now, which is perfectly fine, but they let those 2 go, knowing how important this race is. And nobody wants to be the lap car that takes a win from somebody because they were too busy in their own race and destroyed the race winning cars, by just wrecking in front of them or just doing something idiotic, right? So we don't want to have anything like that happen in the league. That was move of the race for those 2, was just getting out of the way there with a handful of laps to go and letting these 2 leaders really decide it. Now there's 3 more lap cars up ahead of Ryan Kelly, and he's probably getting the aerodynamic wake off of him, but I don't think it's hurting his car as he starts spacing out over Yingling. That's all Ryan had to do was get past those 2 cars. I'm pretty sure he's not going to catch this pack of 3. So all he needs to do is stay on the bottom, stay consistent, and make Larry go to the top if he even does run him down. And I think Ryan Kelly takes the fastest long-run car to victory lane tonight if he does that.
Yeah, I say right now, Ryan really just wants to see this white flag to know that that's all he has to do to get to the end is 1 more clean lap. And so he comes out of 4, and so far everything looking good. So it looks like we will go caution-free here, 120 laps at Nashville Superspeedway. Now this Larry Yingling has he have a last-ditch dive bomb to maybe try to find a way just to maybe throw the 13 off his game. But you see, once Ryan's got that clean air, he's been able to separate himself out just that little bit here as they come down the backstretch for the final time.
Absolutely, and I'm pretty sure on my screen, I don't know about yours, Gael, but coming out of 4, I think now we're coming to get that white flag. I'm pretty sure as we're starting lap 120.
I believe, let me double check here. So on my side, I say that is going to be it right there. Yep, Ryan Kelly's going to get the win here tonight at Nashville. Larry Yingling, hard-fought race, holds on to 2nd. 3rd place is going to go to that 17 of Chad Wilkes. 4th going to go to Dale Knott. Rounding out the top 5 is going to be the number 5 of Kevin Freeze. And then we talked about that fight to be that last car, or stay on the lead lap, I should say. And Jack Walls is going to hang on to that spot in that number 83 car as he comes around here to the start-finish line. Jack Walls is going to finish in that 6th position. But it's going to be Ryan Kelly getting the win tonight.
Absolutely, and I found out what I did. I was watching the car of Jack Walls at that time, and he was so far back. That's why I thought it was 1 more. But great win for Ryan Kelly. Did exactly what he needed to do there. Getting a little congratulatory bump from a teammate, Chad Wilkes, who brought it home in 3rd place. Fell really far back on that run, but Ryan Kelly, once again, showing, in my personal opinion, who is the dominant driver this season. Larry Yingling has gotten a couple wins on fuel strategy, but I really think Ryan Kelly has had the outright pace, the outright speed, and everything to have really gone out and probably won almost every race thus far this season. So nice to see it doesn't come to fuel strategy. Thank the admins for making that decision to make the race a little bit longer so that we could just race for it. Because even without fuel strategy, we got to see an awesome battle between the 13 and the 67 and the lap traffic, coming in play, trying to see what happened there. So I think it shaped up for a great finish. And congrats to Ryan Kelly, Larry Yingling in 2nd, Chad Wilkes in 3rd. And how about Dale Knott bringing home his 2nd top 5 in a row after scoring his 1st one last week, just keeping that momentum riding, and Kevin Freeze rounding out that top 5. What a beautiful end to this race, and probably not going to affect the points too much, but we'll have to look at that later on.
Yeah, I'll definitely see what the points are going to look like after that going into next week. Say for tonight, though, it's going to be Ryan Kelly with the win. You can see him in the 13. Oh, he's going to get a little bit of nose damage. Chad Knaus going to be proud about that one. make sure that car's going to be passing tech. But it's Ryan Kelly getting the win over Larry Yingling, just about half a second. Chad Wilkes third, Dale Knott fourth, Kevin Freeze rounds out our top 5. Jack Walls in 6th. And then that great fight between Todd Merkel and Chris Matthews. Todd's going to come out up top in the 7th position. Chris 8th. Then you got James Lefford, Michael Spell rounding out our top 10. And the remainder of the field, you've got Dale Willoughby in 11th, Gabe Butler in 12th, Alberto Lopez 13th, Eric Laurie 14th, and John Brill going to be in the 15th position. All right, with that, we got some drivers to talk to, and we got to start off with that number 17 of Chad Wilkes. Let's go to hunt Chad on down here. There he is. All right, going to bring our third place finisher, Chad Wilkes. Started third, finishes in third. You definitely had plenty of pace tonight, Chad. It seemed like pretty much for about, I'd say, half to about 3/4 of the run, just seemed like that very last part of the run, just your car just wasn't able to keep up with those tires like Ryan and Larry were able to. But you made some great pit strategy. That little bit of a short pit seemed like it really helped you out, kind of kept you in contention there. I mean, what felt like, I mean, what was the difference for you to lose just those couple tenths that you needed there at the end?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty fast on the short run. If I could have got a late race caution, I feel like I might have been as fast as anybody on the short run. But yeah, I was just tearing my right front to pieces, and just crazy because I feel like Ryan and Larry were sort of losing their right rear, and I mean my right rear was fine. I think I was just braking a little bit deeper than they were, and that's just kind of a driving style thing that probably really doesn't suit long runs here. But, yeah, I mean, I kind of had to short pit from where I was. I screwed up on the first run. I wanted to let Larry by because he let me by earlier, and I felt like I could stay with him, but I accidentally let Ryan by at the same time, and I didn't want to let him get by because I knew he was saving. And I really could keep up with Larry. I feel like when we were both on even tires, I was okay kind of keeping up with him on the long run. But obviously with the way that Ryan saves, faster than him on a short run, but on a long run, he was so much faster. So kind of put myself in a position where I had to short pit. And once I short pitted, I was always on worse tires than they were. So I didn't have much of a chance. I was hoping that I would get a caution or something would help me out. But once that first short pit happens, and once they got around me, I mean, then there's really nothing you can do. You just got to keep short pitting. You got to commit to the strategy at that point.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, that move by Ryan Kelly is like you mentioned, like he saw that opening. He looked like he pretty much felt he's like, I got to take this now, or else I might not get the opportunity later. So I mean, you definitely fought him hard there to try to hold it off. And like you said, he's kind of one of those really good long run drivers. We know you're definitely one of them as well. But yeah, I'll say it looked to be one of the turning points for sure in the race. But like I said, I think the short pit strategy, I think it was a really good idea. I mean, obviously it helped to keep you in that contention. But like I said, then it's just hard to manage that slightly older tires the rest of the way there. But I mean, still a third place finish, an awesome job tonight though. But I'm gonna hand it over to Maxwell here to let him kind of quiz you here as well.
Absolutely, Chad Wilkes, great third place finish, bud. Raced with you many times, and I guess my question for you, I mean, I have no question about the performance. You kind of summed all that up there with Gael about running third and kind of where your car was at. But my question for you is going to be, how'd you feel coming to a track that maybe you've never even made laps at before? I don't recall ever making laps with you myself here at this track. And knowing this is new to the service, how do you think the Xfinity car here drove on the Nashville Superspeedway, and how much did you enjoy it and enjoy the challenge tonight?
Yeah, no, it's a really cool track. I mean, there's plenty of tracks that I definitely complain about, but this isn't one of them. I mean, you actually have to drive this track. I definitely know if and when we come back here, definitely picked up some things. Definitely need to roll the corner a little bit more. I get, with the road course background, I get super brake happy, and that probably burnt my right front up more than other people. But I mean, it's a really, really cool track. I was afraid that you weren't going to be able to pass really. But because it's so bottom dependent, but you really, I mean, you could kind of get, if your tires were better and you were faster, you really kind of could get a good run, coming off of turn 2, especially. So you could pass and you could kind of dive bomb people to make moves. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a really cool track. And, I ran a couple laps here Tuesday night, and, knew I could be pretty fast on the short run. I just needed some cautions there, but hopefully I'll be a little bit better on the long run when I come back.
All right, that's awesome. And I guess one last question that Gail may think's funny that I slip in here. You looking forward to next week there, Chad? Coming to the road course again, these cars? I don't want to say we're picking you as the winner, but how do you feel about going to a road course next week, my friend?
Yeah, no kidding. It's that's usually so far it's worked out pretty good in here. I don't think I've lost one yet. So hopefully we can keep that trend going. I've never well, yeah, I have raced stock cars on the Daytona road course one time, I think, a while back, but I've never done it without the front course or front stretch chicane. So turn one's going to be pretty insane with these cars because I'm assuming they're going to get up to 190, 200 going down into turn one and trying to get these things stopped. It's going to be pretty tough. But yeah, I haven't ran any laps or anything, and I'm about to go on vacation again and won't be back for a little bit. So I'm going to have a little cram session right before the race next week, and hopefully I can keep the run going. I don't know what I am, but I hadn't lost one in the stock cars in this league, I don't think. So hopefully I can keep it going, but there's always usually some pretty decent competition. I definitely don't get to just chill. So, but hopefully it'll work out.
Absolutely. Well, great run tonight, Chad. Another top 3 finish. We're used to seeing you in the top 3. We just got to get 2 more positions for you to get you up there in the front. But before we let you go, we want to give you any thanks and shout outs that you'd like to give here on the broadcast for this 3rd place finish you got tonight.
Yeah, thanks to y'all for the broadcast, of course. Do a great job. I know y'all put a lot into it. It's come a long way, and it's really cool to see. Thanks to the admins and everybody for putting this stuff on. Thanks to the drivers. I guess I wish it wasn't completely caution-free, but, I mean, there was a time when you come to a racetrack like this, and we probably would have had 10 cautions. So, yeah, I mean, that's just kudos to all the drivers for keeping it clean, and thanks to the teammates as always. I know we got a 1, 2, 3 finish here tonight, so it's really cool. Hopefully we can keep it going.
No, well done, Chad. I say enjoy the vacation though, for sure. So I know reality's gonna be coming soon here with the school starting to kick back off in probably about a month or so. So enjoy it while you can. But yeah, definitely look forward to seeing you next week. And say I'm sure your other competitors say if you want to stretch out vacation out a little bit into a Thursday, that's no problem for them though. So yeah, enjoy it, man, and look forward to catching you on track again here soon.
Appreciate it.
All right, so now we got to jump over, find our number 67 of Larry Yingling. Have a word with him. All right, there's Larry. Let's go and grab him on over. Started in the 2nd position, and you've grabbed the 2nd position to finish this one up. I'll say it was kind of a tale of two pit stops, really. So you were able to kind of get that undercut on Ryan on the first one, sneak away from him a little bit. And then that second one, I say we were debating on what was going to be the strategy, when to make that last stop, because you guys are coming up on traffic, and he was able to jump in maybe a lap or so before you there. But also, I say we got to go through the start there, because I say when you're on the front row, you are tough to beat through 1 and 2 there. I'm sure Dale probably giving you a little bit of grief, saying, "Hey man, why don't you at least give me a lap lead before you sneak off with this thing." Uh-oh. I think we lost Larry Maxwell.
I think he's
Can you hear me?
AFK. Oh, now we got him. Go ahead, Larry. We got a copy.
Yeah, the race was pretty good. Yeah, to start the race, I figured I'll just channel my inner Formula drift without the drifting part and get by Dale that way, since he didn't win on practice session a few nights ago. But yeah, with pit strategy, the last stop there, I knew even if I pitted a lap before I did, Ryan probably would have pitted with me, been right next to me, just like Pocono, and even if I came out right ahead of him, I knew he would have saved tires, and I think same result would have happened anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Obviously, I mean, you did a great job of reeling them back in. They got to about that 3 or so tenths, and then kind of evened out a little bit as well. I mean, I say, was that Maxwell? I were wondering too. Did it seem like Dirty Air maybe played a bigger role than we thought it might this evening? It seemed like once you guys got within about that half second or so, it seemed like pretty much everybody's cars were starting to stall out a little bit. Even when you guys were coming up on the, I think it was James or Chris and Todd there at the end. Just like everybody's car started stalling out a little bit. What was it? What did it feel like there behind the wheel?
Maybe a little tighter. I didn't really notice it, but I knew from going out the first or second run when Ryan was faster than me and he got right behind me and he just stalled out. And then I was faster than him at the end, got right behind him, stalled out. Yeah, definitely a little bit more tighter in the center.
All right. So before I hand it over to Maxwell, I'll say, well, actually, no, I'm gonna let you go to Maxwell first, but say I'm gonna definitely have some shout out questions for you because, so you may not be getting blown up on text, but we've got some getting blown up here on YouTube. So first, we'll bring it over to Maxwell though.
Absolutely. So Larry, good second place run. We made the Larry rule tonight, I guess you could call it, where we made the race 20 laps longer, so you couldn't pull your clutch moves on fuel mileage. But other than that, great run. I mean, everybody made it a heck of a race down to the end with lap cars and working through traffic and trying to figure out where to go. I guess my question for you is, there was a part in the race where I feel like maybe it was the deciding factor on whether you went to victory lane or you didn't. But before I share my side, I would like to ask you, where do you think the race was won or lost at for you there, Larry? Where do you think maybe you could have done something different to have gotten this W tonight?
Definitely Ryan pinning a lap before me.
Absolutely, because in my opinion, it wasn't even that he pitted before you, but would you say that when you came down pit road, being behind the lapped car and having to slow down with them to their pace on entry, do you think that was maybe just enough time there that it cost you, being too far back and being able to catch him while the tires were fresh to be able to pass him?
No, not really. Yeah, I lost, I don't know, some time behind him, but I think I would have still came up behind Chad and would have had to take a lap or two for my tires to warm up and race Chad. And I know earlier in the race, this didn't lose me in the race at all, but I had a decent lead, and coming up to some lap cars that like to hang on your right rear, and this really drags you back. And yeah, I mean, I don't mind whatsoever that I lost. Well, technically lost. Mr. Ryan pitted before me because I've won races before on strategy, so it don't really matter.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to point out how you lost. I was just, that deciding factor of, man, you always look back, if I could do that one thing different, what would I do? And I racing with you long enough, I feel like right there, knowing that was probably one of those you wished you had pitted that lap earlier with Chad. But anyways, beside that, great run, great pace tonight. You caught right back up to Ryan, just between traffic and aerodynamics and just that aero push the cars seem to have when you get within a half second of somebody, just kind of kept you that just far enough back to finish second. But great run. We want to give you the floor now for any shout outs you might have, Larry, on this second place finish.
Well, I think Guile got some stuff to say first.
Well, as I know, it's definitely the thanks and shout outs, but also say if you have any special messages to one of your biggest fans on YouTube, the number 93 of Kevin Brown, because he is blowing up our YouTube chat right now. So I think he definitely wants to hear anything special you have for him from yourself as well here.
Oh, was that him? I knew I saw someone in the grandstands with a number 167 fan, foam finger. Yeah, nice to see him in the grandstands. It sucks he wasn't on track tonight, giving us a run for our money. But maybe maybe when we lap in at Daytona next week. I don't know.
Yeah, I just love the fun rivalries we have with these guys. But yeah, no, in all seriousness though, I know you do have some great sponsors on board that car, so definitely want to give you the opportunity here for any thanks and shout outs.
I'm definitely going to shout out my teammates this race, Ryan Kelly, Chad Wilkes, and Todd Merkel. All my sponsors this race, Hash Butters Performance. If you need any work done on your LS engine or GM vehicle, contact them on Facebook to see what they can do for you. Muffin Sports Cards. If you are into sports car collecting or want to get into it and don't know where to start, follow Muffin Sports Cars on Instagram. He is always wanting to get people closer to the hobby and can help you find stuff, so don't be afraid to ask him for help. And Fort Worth Screen Printing. If you like t-shirts, jackets, bags, hats, shorts, among other stuff with custom artwork printed on them, check them out on fwscreen.com. Thank you guys as always for broadcast. And going back to that pit stop, yeah, when Ryan pitted, I said, all right, I got pit this lap. Then the guy in front of me he said he was going to pit. I'm like, oh my god. I trust in him. He'll get in there fine. But when you have someone right in front of you, you just don't know. But it all worked out. I'm fine with it.
All right, well done, Larry. Obviously, a little bit different stuff next week with the Daytona Road Course. Sounds like the driver's already getting ready to get some laps underneath there. But yes, I mean, great job. Always a pleasure to watch your race, and look forward to catching you next week, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we are being not asked here, Maxwell. We are being demanded that we talk to our race winner in that number 13 of Ryan Kelly, because if we don't get this Ryan Kelly interview in, I think Kevin Brown is going to explode. So, Ryan, I say it's one of those things that we know that you're going to be one of those ones that is going to be tough to beat. But so you had a little bit of each way there tonight. Say with first you having to kind of work your way back up to get to the lead there, trying to get up to Larry and them. And then that second stop, say where you made the call to kind of what Max and I were talking about during the broadcast, maybe try to undercut him when he was in that traffic there. And it seemed like that made a huge difference there at the end. I mean, just take us through the race and kind of the strategies that unfolded.
Yeah, definitely. I know on the first pit stop, I probably should have went in as soon as I saw them go, but I decided to stay out a couple laps longer just in case a caution came out. And then from there, I was just chasing them down. And by the time I got to Larry, I know it worked for them, so I thought I might as well give it a go. And it just put me in the lead and had to defend from there.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the next question is on the defense side of things. How defensive did you have to drive? I mean, was it kind of just managing the gap initially, managing your tires, or what were you having to do to try to make sure that you had enough at the end to hold off Larry? Obviously, it was only the lap difference on tires between the two of you, but then I mean, definitely seemed like you kind of stalled out there towards the end when you were kind of catching some of the traffic there. And also, I mean, how tense was that for you not being able to kind of just pick them off and go real quick, because it definitely took you guys a while to get to them, and then of course then to get around them.
Oh yeah, it was super tense. I mean, I was pushing as hard as I could the whole time, so I wasn't really saving anything. I was just trying to keep my distance and hope he wouldn't get to me. And thankfully, just had a little bit. Well, I think it was only half a second at the end, and it just ran out of laps.
So you definitely did what you had to do tonight. I said those Max and I were kind of joking. Those 20 extra laps, the Larry rule, if you will, may have been one to avoid the potential fuel situation that you kind of got caused. It kind of hurt you those first couple of races that Larry was able to work the fuel mileage on you on. But yeah, just awesome job tonight, man. Definitely want to pass you over to Maxwell though.
Absolutely. So first off, great win tonight, Ryan. I originally said in the race at one point that for once I didn't think you had the fastest car early on. I thought maybe the 67 had a little bit of pace, but as we got into this full-fledged green flag race here, I was proven wrong. As the long run went, you had the fastest car on track, and you proved it. You actually did very well running all the way down, running Larry down from what was at one point a 3.5 second deficit, running all the way back to his back bumper. I thought you would get to maybe within a second and a half of him, but you did even above and beyond that and pulled the pit strategy amazingly to get the position you got to get the win. So instead of asking questions about the race, because I'm pretty sure we know what happened there, here's an interesting one I got for you, okay? With the performance you have had all season long, how do you feel now with just a couple races left before the playoffs? You and Larry are in a tight points battle already. You've got 2 wins now in the season. He's got 3. He got 2 on fuel mileage, but I think you've had the pace. Where do you see yourself as far as a run to the championship? Like, do you think you have what it takes to be able to beat out Larry and whoever else is in that top 8 to be able to get the championship this year and be a multiple champion in Area 51?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure by the time it comes, there'll be 8 good drivers going for the same thing. So it should be fun, but it's nice to have a couple wins now, just focus on the last couple races and really prepare for those ones more than some of the other ones, which might be an advantage to someone who's still fighting to get in.
Absolutely. And the last question I got is, are you going to be able to complete this race next week without blowing your motor, my friend? Racing with you last season, both road courses, you had a little trouble with the gear shifts. You think you're going to be all right for this road course at Daytona?
I don't know. We'll find out, I guess. Tune in next week.
Awesome. Well, hey, we want to give you the floor for any shout outs and thanks you got, my friend. So go ahead and take the floor and thank whoever you need to thank for this awesome victory you got.
Yeah, well, my teammates tonight and you guys in the booth and all the drivers for another caution-free race. It's been an amazing, clean season, and I think this is probably the season we've had the most caution-free races ever.
Yeah, it was well done, Ryan. Well earned. Let's say a little bit of everything that you had to fight through tonight. I say we had a little bit of a friendly rivalry between Kevin Brown and Larry during the interview, but say he's been definitely talking you up in our YouTube chat as well. So say when he's not on track battling with you, it looks like you have a fan in that 93 car as well. So. So maybe something to keep in your mind for future races. If you got somebody that you need to try to kind of team up with against Larry, I think you might have a partner there.
Will do.
All right, Ryan, enjoy the win. I'll say it's well earned. I said it sounds like drivers already getting ready for next week, getting some practice servers up and everything like that. So say up to you if you want to enjoy the win for a little bit before you get ready for next week. But yeah, great job tonight though.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, Maxwell, that is our race winner in that number 13, Ryan Kelly. Saying again, when drivers can't make races, they definitely still have fun with one another. We know Larry obviously loves to have fun with Kevin Hash and vice versa with those two. Even with Kevin helping sponsor that car with the Hash Brothers Performance, really cool to see kind of drivers supporting their own. I kind of did expect to see maybe a caution or two. We saw a couple close calls there. But I say they all went off the track, so unfortunately didn't. Fortunately, unfortunately, I guess depending on the driver, didn't come out to bring that into play. But just great job by these drivers. Like Ryan said, I mean, it's been a very, very clean season so far.
Absolutely, these drivers truly showing what they're made of, and we've had a little bit smaller fields than we've wanted probably so far this season. Not too many running tonight, but we talked about it being a new track and maybe a lot of people not having it probably kept a few of the regulars away, or work or other things. But hopefully next week we have plenty come out to what I think is one of the coolest road courses out there in the world is the Daytona Road Course. Not only is Daytona popular for its oval and the Daytona 500 and all the history behind that, but just being able to run like Chad said earlier, 180, 190, and start slamming gears down into turn one, trying to avoid that wheel hop as you make that hard left-hand turn and go off into that infield, man. It's going to be an awesome, awesome race for sure. And, Gael, we may have to get us a camera from that big old Ferris wheel out there. Get us a nice overhead view of that race course. I don't know if we can do that or not. That'd be neat to do, but just a great track and great stuff going on. And Gael, something else we'll be looking at next week as we go to the race that'll mark the halfway point of the season. Points championship, I know, is going to reset, but as of right now, for a regular season champ, man, we are getting tight on the points. Ryan Kelly is coming back. He is only 11 points behind Larry Yingling now in the championship battle. And we actually have a tie for third place right now with Christopher Matthews and Dale Knott. But they are both 56 points behind the leader. Definitely probably a battle for third right now until we get into the playoffs. James Ledford dropped down a position down into the fifth in standings. And then it gets interesting here as we've got Gabe Butler in sixth and Todd Merkel and Chad Wilkes both tied for seventh. Kevin Freeze on the outside looking in, though, in ninth. And he's only 7 points back. So a lot of players with great runs maybe had to have missed a couple races, and we're going to have a drop week coming up soon if that's still what we're doing this season. I know we did last season, and it affected the points a little bit. So it's going to be real interesting to see how they shake up getting close to playoff time, Gael.
Yeah, exactly right. And I believe, I think there still will be that one drop week too. Again, I mean, real life happens. So you say if you got work, like tonight, the 93 couldn't make it due to work commitments. Or things of that nature. So it's gonna be interesting to say. We've definitely been on one of the tougher stretches of the schedule. I think that's been part of the car count for sure. Say Pocono, definitely a very tricky triangle, if you will. Like I said tonight, a brand new racetrack that maybe some drivers did not own as of yet. And then say Daytona road course. Road courses are kind of hit or miss. Some drivers they flock to them, some kind of scares them away. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, still plenty of racing to go. It's kind of crazy that we're already just about halfway into this one. But it's gonna be a lot of fun to see what that second half's gonna have for us to see who's gonna get into the top 8 for the playoffs, and then of course that final 4 races to see who's gonna be on that top step of the podium.
Absolutely, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb right now to call that the two drivers are going to be battling closest for it. it's going to be that 67 and that 13, and I think it goes all the way down to that last race. But we can always have an upset in these playoffs. We've seen it plenty of times before. So, guys, y'all have to tune in to Green White Checker TV and find out how this all shakes out as this season goes on. We're not even to the halfway point yet, but Daytona Road Course next week. Super pumped for it. Super excited. And, Gael, hold on to your seatbelts, man. We're going off into turn 1 for that green flag is going to be insane next week. Really looking forward to it, though. It's going to be an awesome race, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm saying that. Do you need to mention that Daytona race? It's gonna be not the NASCAR road course with those little extra chicanes. They're going full send into turn number 1. It's gonna be a lot of speed down to a very slow speed. So drivers are gonna have to really learn their braking points next week. But I think it's gonna be a fun challenge for them. And I think Daytona road course, I think one of the better road courses. These cars definitely seem to work well with them. I say NASCAR is starting to run there a little bit more. So looking forward to it. Yeah, like I said, say just got to stay tuned to check it out and find out. Say of course we'll be back next week for that for the Premier Series at Daytona Road Course. We'll be back on Sunday evening. However, for the Super Speedway Series, we've had some great action over there, so definitely check that one out as well. But Maxwell, as always, it is a pleasure, sir. Looking forward to catching you next week, and I mean I'm the same way as you though. I think next week's gonna be one where I'm gonna be kind of wishing I was in the track there, racing those cars. That's gonna be I think a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me in the booth once again, Gael. Been a fun season, a fun different pace, getting to watch everything instead of racing. But I'm not gonna lie, the last 2 weeks, you can ask Gael, guys. I've been itching to get back in the car. Them practice laps I get to run, I love it, man. Running with my favorite people out there. It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of fun up here in the booth too, Gael, and just getting to see things from a different light and watching just what could shape up to be one of the greatest championships ran for in Area 51 history. I mean, this thing's really tightening up, so plenty of racing left to go, and just can't wait to see what's next. So.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So, yeah, so those watched and supported us, thank you so much. Say, Kevin, definitely want to see you on track next week. Don't want to see you at work. So, call him sick. Just kidding, work, if you're listening. He won't be faking that. But no, hope you all enjoyed tonight's race. Look forward to seeing you on the future broadcast on Sunday or next week, of course, on the Super Speedway. Or, sorry, Sunday on the Super Speedway, or Thursday, of course, next week we'll be back with Premiere, and, of course, Tuesdays with the Indy Series. So until then, I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Happy Friday Eve. And until then, have a wonderful evening and take care, everyone.